Hello, friends. Welcome back to Igniting Imagination. I'm your host, Lisa Greenwood, and I'm here with our co host for this season, the Reverend Dr. Amy Butler. Welcome back, Amy.
Thanks, Lisa. Love talking with you always.
Yes, me too. So, this season, we're having a conversation with some invested faith fellows, and these are faith rooted social entrepreneurs working to build businesses that become new models of faith, community, and justice making across the country. And our conversation today is with a leader doing just that. And I can't wait for our listeners to hear from her. But before we do that, Amy, you founded and have been leading Invested Faith for several years. And over the past 4 years, you've awarded 72 fellowships. And I'm wondering if you might take a step back with us. What are you learning about the spiritual landscape today? What is
Mhm.
God up to from your point of view, if you might be so bold?
Yeah. Just to hear those words come out of your mouth, it's so overwhelming to me. Like over 70 social entrepreneurs that we have now identified, resourced, and connected. And, we are living in such a precarious political moment and social moment, and having that network of people who are
Mm,
on the ground meeting those needs. When we started Invested Faith, we were just looking for, a legacy tool for churches that were reaching completion.
mm,
Who is taking the baton and moving the mission forward? Um, but one of the things I reflect on often now is like, here we now have this network of people across our country. And it's another reminder to me that God is always to something. It's whether or not we're paying attention
right.
and whether or not we're willing to go there. People ask me all the time, how do you find invested faith
Mm,
fellows?
mhm,
And the answer to that is paying attention to where God is working. I mean, we're
mm.
talking to someone today who I met because you and I are at the stage of life where we have children who are getting married. And my daughter's best friend from preschool got married in Philadelphia last year. And her wedding was organized by this amazing organization called Andrée Collective.
Wow, I didn't realize that's how you met Sam. Okay.
That's exactly
Wow.
right. And so, what that's teaching me about the landscape of social innovation in this moment is pay attention.
Nice.
God is
Yeah.
working all over the place.
That paying attention is so critical. And I think about what Margaret Wheatley has taught us about emergence and change, and that when there's innovation happening, that uh, that part of the work or for organizations like ours and yours is to spotlight those innovators, right? To just shine the light on them so that others can hear their story and then network them so that they can organize for change. Okay, so we've talked about this a lot, and I just feel like, Amy, you are a great observer. You are one who pays attention well and spotlights well. And we need that right now. So thank you. Thank you for
Oh,
that work that you're doing. And
thank
I
you.
believe such a powerful ministry right now. Um, but
I'm enjoying this podcast so much because it's communicating the stories of some of these new models, which are just not commonplace to us, and we can't understand them until we hear the stories of real people's experience. So I just appreciate so much the opportunity
yeah,
to tell
right?
them.
Right. Me too. Me too. I'm so glad to get to do it. So, our guest today is Samantha Mathews, and we've already referred to her, but Amy, can you tell us a little bit more about Sam?
You will see when you listen. Sam is full of energy and enthusiasm for what she does. She is a clinical mental health counselor and the founder of a business called the Andrée Collective. You're going to love the story of how that name came about. She grew up in Canada and has a passion for serving women who have been traumatized through domestic violence and has worked in her career across the United States, but started thinking, well, what would be a vehicle to help these women pull themselves out of their trauma into a life that is thriving, she says. And that's how Andrée Collective came to be. Since she completed her MA in clinical mental health counseling, she has worked tirelessly for the population of domestic violence survivors, and now in the city of Philadelphia, especially. And you'll see how she talks so deeply about her faith and how her faith informs her work with trauma survivors and, bizarrely, the wedding and event planning industry.
Right, right. So, what stood out to you as you heard this as you were part of this conversation with Samantha?
So this took me straight back to the beginning of my ministry when, of course, I'm a Baptist. I couldn't get a church because I'm a woman. And the only job I could get was running a homeless shelter. And
Mm,
so I went into a homeless shelter for women that was condemned by the fire department my first day of work,
mm,
and
mm,
had to learn from scratch how complicated it is to help women and the people who depend on them
mm.
move through social systems and become independent and thriving and whole again. And one of the things that Samantha talks about is beauty, and how beauty is so integral to our thriving. And I really needed that reminder today. So,
Yeah, yeah. That stood out to me too. It's the first thing I noted. And the other thing was, and she'll talk about this, y'all will hear her talk about the their values, and the very first one is being tenaciously for women, and how that actually permeates how they show up for each other in community, how they have built community with each other. And that's on their staff, their team, their board, their clients, these women who have become part of their community. They are for them. They're for each other. And I just think if if there's ever a witness of the love of Jesus in this world, is it not to be for each other? And so it was powerful. I loved hearing her story.
yeah.
Yeah.
You would think more of us would be flocking toward ideas like this. I hope we can get there.
Yeah. Yeah. It was beautiful. Well, let's listen to our conversation with Sam. Sam, thank you for being with us. We're so excited about this conversation.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on.
So we'll jump right in, and I would love to hear the backstory of Andrée Collective
Yeah.
and how you came to found it, and you might give us a little one-on-one, a little 101 about the organization.
Yeah, you bet. Absolutely. Well, I'll start with explaining what we do and who we are, and then I'll get into how we got there. So,
Perfect.
Andrée Collective is a social enterprise nonprofit located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And we serve survivors of domestic violence and human trafficking and other adult females who have experienced trauma. We serve them in the time that they have maybe left their abuser and are starting over and trying to figure out what now? What do I do? It's oftentimes when the resources kind of run out and there's a massive need in multiple different areas. We find the biggest areas of need to be the mental and emotional healing, so therapy resources that are affordable and accessible. It also with financial needs, and so we meet those in two different ways. We do financial literacy courses that and provide access to uh, professionals who can provide financial resources, open office hours, that kind of thing. And we also do employment, and that is kind of the bread and butter of what we do. Our employment is in the wedding and events industry. So we do event planning and florals. We actually just added on florals this year, which has been a very exciting initiative. And we provide apprenticeships, paid part time apprenticeships for folks who are having trouble getting back into uh, their career or into the work world, maybe for the first time if they weren't able to work because their visa didn't let them, or maybe they have a large gap in their resume because of the trauma they experienced or because of having to flee or relocate. So we provide apprenticeships that go through a career development curriculum. So we provide a ton of transferable skills as well as hands-on real-world experience in the weddings and events that we are hired to do. So a lot of really great skills for being able to move forward and doing that all in a really therapeutic and healing environment. So that's our work, yeah. And how
I
did you
love
get
this.
I know, I do
Sorry,
too. This is
I love
fun.
this, and I'm curious to know, like, how did you decide weddings and events? And I'm like, it's like being a funeral director. You're never gonna run out of business.
Yeah, you never run out of business. Exactly. So that's good. It's actually a $75 billion industry in America. So weddings are just they're massive, they're huge. And people are pouring obscene amounts of money into them, frankly, right? And a lot of times people are looking at that and going, especially, our socially conscious couples, they're looking at that and going, man, I'm putting a lot of money into this one day and I want to enjoy it and I want it to feel special. But at the same time, I maybe feel a little guilty about that, or I really want to find ways for it to live on. And frankly, there just aren't a lot of those options for couples in the events industry. So we have a real niche in that area. As far as the perspective of our clients, it's a fantastic industry for a couple of reasons. First, it's a low barrier industry, and that really you need experience. You don't need particular education or specific training. So we're able to work with people if they have not graduated high school or if they've not graduated college. That's not a barrier in this industry, and that's incredibly helpful with the population we serve, right? Like we're not trying to hire accountants, right? We're trying to hire, people can help with floral arranging or walk alongside us as we work with a couple in their budget. And so that piece is really helpful. It's also so many job skills within the events industry are extremely transferable to every other industry. So if you think about wedding planning, for example, it's really project management meets customer service, right? So like you can provide
Mm.
really good customer service and you can do some really good project management. You're really going to do well in the event space and really most other spaces because that's transferable to so many different jobs. And so we have professional event planners that do the primary planning on the wedding, and then our apprentices come alongside in the process for our external events as well as our internal events, which is really fun. We do a gala every year. We do other internal events throughout the year. We did a really beautiful styled shoot this year, styled photo shoot that our apprentices helped plan, kind of beginning to end. And then if our apprentices feel ready to, or if it's something that they feel safe doing, then we welcome them to be on site during the events on event days as well. And that might be being a second assistant or helping with things in the lead up. So there's a lot of opportunity in it for them, which is something that we really love.
Nice. So what led you to create this? What do you call it? I want to call it a ministry, but
Yeah.
that's my
Yeah,
perspective.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. No,
yeah.
I think totally. So Andrée Collective, we're not a specifically faith aligned organization, but this organization came about as an overpouring of my personal faith and desire to really live out what faith looks like in serving the least of these, caring for the widows and the orphans, like being there for the people who are in need in the ways that I have been gifted in front of me, right? And so I am a licensed professional counselor. I've been working as a therapist for the last several years with specifically adult female trauma survivors. So that's my specialty that I've honed in on. So I've worked in domestic violence agencies, in community behavioral health trauma organizations, as well as in private practice. And throughout that work, a lot of times, I'm meeting women who are in all sorts of different places in the process from I don't know if I feel safe in my relationship, but I've never labeled it as abuse or anything else, right? All the way to I am leaving and in that process to I've left and I'm trying to get a divorce, or I've left and had to flee and I'm starting, right? So all sorts of different places in that. And the thing that I've found over and over and over again is there are not enough resources for any step in this process. Truly, there's not enough resources. There's not enough shelter resources specifically, especially here in Philadelphia. That's a huge problem. However, there are some, at least, and there are, some crisis organizations. There are very few, not none. There are very few though organizations who solely exist to step in the aftermath and help
Mm.
people to be able to kind of figure out what's next, gain independence, to be able to flourish, and really provide a place for people to dream about what the future could look like. Um, we often will talk in our financial literacy classes, like, what if what you're looking at isn't just a hope of being able to pay your rent, but maybe a hope of one day building generational wealth for your family, which might not look the same as what, uh, a already wealthy generational wealth family looks like, right? But it might mean that you have something to pass down to them, and how cool would that be, right? And so we're really allowing opportunities to dream about these things for the first time, to dream about what a safe life could look like. And so that's something that we're very passionate about, really wanting to step into that gap. I have a really visceral memory that comes up a lot when I think about the kind of early, like, dreaming stages of Andrée Collective. I was working at a domestic violence agency, and one of the women came in and she was looking at me, and we're sitting in this like counseling type session, this like intake session, and I'm telling her the services we can offer that are mostly, mental health related services, and she goes, I mean, all of that's helpful, and like obviously I need that, but I can't like provide for myself. Like, I'm gonna have to go back to my abuser. Like, I have no options. I cannot uh I can't make money. I've been trying to find a job. I like can't find a job, or I find a job and then I can't do the hours because of my kids, or I can't, my abuser will, you know, come harass me at work, or they don't understand if I need to take off for a court date. And so I just keep losing jobs if I get them. And so now I can't even get them. And she was so flustered and so frustrated. And I remember there was one kind of like city resource that I was able to print off and offer her, and I handed it to her, and she shoved it back at me and was like, if another person hands me that resource, I'm gonna lose my mind. I understand that it's there and I've been there, and it's just not enough. Like, it's not enough for like the specific needs that I have. And not to undermine any other resource that out there. I'm so grateful for every partner organization and every resource that exists. It's like every little bit matters. It is such an example of how there's not enough specifically for this population, right? Because then we're dealing with services that are serving, all sorts of different, populations and communities, and there just really are particular needs when you're starting over from this type of trauma as a woman, and trying to figure out how to move forward. So, in that. There had already been kind of seeds of this idea coming about, and that was a moment where I was like, yeah, this is what I'm called to. And I'm gonna figure out one day how to move forward in it. So, yeah, there's a lot of moments like that throughout, just the years of kind of formulating this thought and dream, that I look back on and I go, yeah, that's why we're here. That's why we're doing this.
I think about you a lot because, as a pastor, I would much rather do 10 funerals than one wedding. I mean, just like weddings are just like a nightmare. But your idea is so like smack your forehead
Mm.
obvious. Like,
Mm.
how was it like a middle of the night thing, or like how did you like it's event planning and weddings?
I know. Yeah. It was kind of a slow burn process of seeing social enterprises pop up and going, I love the nonprofit world, but man, I love the model of let's let's not just, provide someone a resource, but teach them how to do that resource themselves so that they can go off and live a full, thriving life. And so I saw examples of these that were primarily in the restaurant industry and in the arts industry. So those are kind of the two places I tend to see this, right? So we see it in like jewelry making. Here in Philadelphia, we have a phenomenal program called Mural Arts that, we have Philadelphia has one of the best public art programs in the country, like the most public art, I think, of any city in the country. So it's a beautiful place to live for that. Philly gets a bad rep, but I'm gonna hype it a lot because it's a great place. And they have a program that they do as a social enterprise. They do employment, and so we see it a lot in art, and we see it a good bit in restaurant industry. When I was living in Raleigh, North Carolina, the first time I saw this was a place called Carol's Kitchen. They provided restaurant jobs for homeless women, and I loved that. I love that model. Uh, we have several of those here in Philadelphia as well, for different populations aging out of foster care. We see that with folks who are coming out of incarceration. Um, my struggle with those areas is that they're not always as transferable, in terms of the job skills, and even though they have a very low barrier of entry, which makes them so great, um, the earning potential can be pretty small there. And so we really wanted to think about, like, how do we make sure that we're leveraging, like, earning potential here so that you can go from this into any other job. And frankly, I love hosting, I love events, I love parties, I love celebrating, I love all of it. And so that was something that felt really as a potential opportunity. Like, what if these two things came together? And what if they became something that, could provide job opportunities that taught uh the types of skills that then you could go into really any industry and be able to hopefully thrive in.
So, what kinds of partners do you have in this? Like, what makes this possible?
Yeah.
Because I'm guessing it's not just you
Yeah, great
doing all
question.
of it. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
great question. In the beginning, it's very feels very like, "Oh my gosh, I gotta do
yeah,
all of it."
I'm
I
sure.
from the very start, we've had an incredible, working board that has,
Mm.
really just had a diversity of skill sets. They're still so phenomenal. We now are starting to have a staff, which is so great. So we have one full-time staff, some part-time staff, so we're loving that. Staff is amazing. But we do have a lot of community partners, so we get most of our referrals from other, agencies around Philadelphia that are working with human trafficking survivors or domestic violence survivors. And then same thing on the wedding and event side. We've worked with a lot of incredible vendors that are really excited to be able to refer us to couples, so that we can get more work, right? Because that has to come from both sides. We need to have the continuation of influx of clients as well as a continuation of influx of events so that we can have enough work for them to be able to do throughout the year. And so it really is growing both of those at the same time. And Philadelphia is a really incredible community of different agencies that are really great at referring to one another and working together in partnership.
Sam, we are talking this season about new models of ministry. What would you say to someone who's like, yeah, well, that's nice that she's organizing weddings, but this isn't really church.
Mm,
This isn't really, talk to us about the redemptive nature of your work.
mm, I love that. I would say that Paul was a tent maker. I don't Jesus was a carpenter, right? Like the idea that sometimes we put ministry in such a box of, vocational ministry looks like this one specific thing. I think is it completely undermines generations of, ministers that have come before us that might not look like, pastors and or preachers in churches, but that are doing the work of, the hands and feet of Christ. And so I do think that this work is, it is an area of ministry, an avenue of ministry, that, we get to be a piece of, a beautiful, quilt of ministry that exists. And so, yes, we're doing something that in some ways is different from what the church is doing. And at the same time can weave in and come alongside in a way that's so beautiful and special. And I think, just having the thing that I love most maybe about church is just having a beautiful community, right? A beautiful community of people from different backgrounds and with different lives that are united by one thing, right? By their love of God and desire to come together in that way. At Andrée Collective in our organization, we have such a beautiful community of survivors who come from different backgrounds, of staff who oftentimes have also come from lived experience, same with board members, community partners, all these people who have also come from different environments and equally are there for a similar mission or cause, or services, whatever that might be. We've something that unites us together, and it creates a really beautiful uh community and a safe space. And I'm never shy about, if someone asks me why I do this, like, I do this because I love Jesus and Jesus loves these women. And so and so I I never back down from explaining that. And I think that's um I think being in a space that, church might not feel safe to everybody, but Andrée Collective might. And if we can help break down the barriers that, you know, kind of are preventing someone from being able to lean into or live their faith, then I see that as just as much the work of ministry as any other ministry position.
Mm, beautiful. I love how you're describing them creating community together, which of course that's the the church, ecclesia, the body of Christ, right? It's how we are in relationship with each other. So
Yeah.
what does that look like? Like, I'm curious about is that in those group therapy moments? Is it, an interdependence? Is it caring
Yeah.
for, like, what does it look like? And then I'd love for you to just tell us a story or two, paint a picture
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
what it's like for someone who's been part of your program.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I would say, one thing we really strive for at Andrée Collective is to really not have as much of a power imbalance as exists in a lot of spaces. So,
Mm,
uh, our apprentices that come through began as, clients or program participants right through one of our programs. And then they come on as staff and they're staff right alongside the rest of
mm,
us, right? And so, uh, it really does break down and shift power dynamic in a way that I think
mm,
is really healing and helpful and collaborative. We talk all the time that we are a values-based organization. We have 6 core values that we kind of pump into everything that we do. The first one, and one that we probably talk about the most, is that we're tenaciously for women. And so we lay that out as being like, we're tenaciously for one another. So
mm,
when there are moments of challenge or hardship, like, how can I be for you, like fully for you? Like, move everything else aside and I'm gonna be for you right now. And when
mm.
that happens in the day in and day out, it really bleeds through all different aspects of the organization. So one of the ways that we really build that collaborative community in our organization is through our group therapy. So we do individual therapy as well, which for survivors of complex trauma is really important because they're able to dive deeper down into their story. But for the folks who are coming out of those situations, a lot of times, really pretty much all the time when there's coercive control, there's some form of isolation. So isolation from community, from friendships, from family, from neighbors, from really themselves in a lot of ways, right? And their own interests, their own desires. And so getting into a group therapy environment allows the opportunity to to hear from others in a safe way who've experienced things that might feel similar to what they've experienced, and that is a lot of times just eye-opening, right? That where the other person's story might be different, their experiences might be different, but the feelings that they felt feel really, really similar. And so that aspect is very healing for our survivors who've experienced all that isolation. The ministry of, yeah, wait, you too, me too, is beautiful. So we love that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Sam, I wonder if you know, as people of faith, we're in the work of resurrection, of um, seeing new birth, and I love your reference to the work of women, because this is so focused on women as a population, but also the way that we care for each other and care for our children, and the complex layers of trauma that are involved in recovery. Could you tell us a story about one woman who really stood out to you, who came into the Andrée Collective
Mhm.
sphere and was able to make a change?
Yeah, man. Yeah, there's a lot of different stories that I could share. One of my favorite, more recent ones, and I know she would be, ecstatic with me sharing this story. A lot of it's challenging because so much of what we deal with is confidential, and safety is such a big piece. But I'll tell you about one of our apprentices who came into our program through a partner organization, was living in more of like a transitional living kind of situation. So, not in an independent, you know, living on her own and paying her own rent. And so she, in order to be able to be eligible for a rapid rehousing program, she needed two pay stubs from a job. So she needed to be able to have a job and then have two pay stubs from that. She had come into Andrée Collective through our partnership with the organization she was associated with, through first our financial literacy program. And we have the most incredible volunteer who leads our financial literacy program. And I think that, connection, she felt seen, she felt hope. And so then she joined our therapy group, or we did an online therapy group. We do both online and in person. So we try and create as much accessibility as possible for
Mhm.
everyone's different needs. And so she joined that and started to feel, again, some hope, some healing, some of that, like, other people are getting this too situation. So we did an interest meeting for our apprenticeship, and she came. It was just on Zoom. She was like dressed up and ready to go as if it was a job interview. And we always say, like, it's not an interview, where we don't expect a resume. Like, those are barriers to employment, and we do that in our career development program. Like, we're going to work on that. We don't expect you to come with it. So, but she was like, she was dressed, she was ready, she had her notebook out. She's like, you could tell she's just like hungry for this. And she has all the skills. She just needs someone to give her a chance, right? Like, she has a gap on her resume. She's been through a lot in this, in the meantime, and she's had to relocate. And so there's just a lot of, like, she just needed someone to give her a yes. And so we kind of go through the process of our interest meeting, and then having an individual conversation with her. Um, and one of my favorite Andrée Collective moments to date was calling her and telling her that we wanted to hire her as our apprentice. And she was just like hollering on the phone of excitement, and I could hear her housemates in the background also super excited for her. She was able to start with us, and has had at the time she was able to get two pay stubs, and as soon as she had those first two pay stubs, she was able to get rapid rehousing. So at that time, she was able to find an apartment, which is hard in Philadelphia. Like, housing market's challenging. So she was able to find an apartment, and our whole team was just we were so over the moon for her. Our board and everybody was like, how do we find her? How do we help find her furniture? How do we get her a coffee? Everyone's on there, like, Facebook Marketplace. A lot of board members were like, make an Amazon list. We'll buy as much stuff as we can. I mean, everyone was like, we're in. Like, we're in it for you to have your own home. Like, we're just so happy for her that she was able to get that because of her employment with us. And so, I mean, we had a couple of staff members, or like interns and volunteers and stuff, just like hey, when are you moving? Can I help you move? It's like it wasn't even at that point like an Andrée collective initiative. It was just because our community is so uh in on it, right? They're like, oh, we're tenaciously for you, girl. Like, let's go. We're gonna get you moved in. And um I went to see her a couple months later, and I was we looked around, we're like, you have a fully furnished apartment with like your coffee maker and your microwave and your toaster, just a TV, everything. Like,
Oh.
I mean, and it was just the community, right? Like the community was like, and it's so funny as the like CEO, you're always thinking like, oh no, we don't want this precedent that like we're going to end up being like, furnishing everyone's apartment. So, I'm like trying to think about it from the like, liability and this and that and all this stuff. And our team's like, don't worry about you. Like, we're doing this. This isn't Andrée. This is just us. This is because we love her and we love this community. And that's, uh, the kind of thing we want to foster, right? Like, we have our programs that we're doing, but through those programs, we've created such a real community, right? Like a real team that want to even people are literally like, "Hey, I heard that you have someone who's got a Amazon wish list. Can you send it over?" People are coming out of the woodwork to buy stuff for her, and I just thought, how cool is that? And we've had many other similar situations like that in the past, but that one was one of my favorites from last year that just blew my mind how everyone just rallied.
What? Why are you named Andrée Collective?
Great question. We're named Andrée Collective because my husband and I are history buffs. My husband specifically, George Washington on the wall behind me, because I'm in his office right now. Andrée Dijon was a World War II hero that very few people heard about because we love to erase women from history. She started this sort of like escape route called the Comet Line that was coming out of Belgium in World War II. So when people would, when soldiers would land in occupied territory, this essentially spy network would work to be able to get them moved into safe spaces. And so it was mostly women in this Comet Line, and they would kind of move them along the network and be able to get them into safety. And which just is such a phenomenal principle in and of itself that we really wanted to capture. Uh, but the icing on top that just makes her really cool is she was this young, petite little, like 23 or something. Like she was young and like
Oh
this
my god.
little nurse. And so because of that, she actually she had this nickname, the Postwoman. And she had a couple nicknames. That was one of them. And so one time the German officers captured her, and then they kind of looked at her and was like, you can't be her. Like, you can't be the postwoman. And they let her go because she was just
This isn't right.
too young.
You're not her.
You're not her. There's no way. And she eventually did end up getting captured and going to a concentration camp. And then when she was eventually, released from there when the war ended, she moved to, I think, like Uganda and just was like, gave her life as just like a missionary to like love orphan children till the day she died, which is just
Mhm.
what a cool person, right? And
Wow.
I love this idea of like she's just this cute little person that's like surely not her. And when I started telling people like, hey, we're gonna do this in the wedding industry, that was kind of the same response. Like in the wedding industry, like in events and like surely not through that way. And we're like, no, no, just wait, like we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's
Nice.
crazy, but like we're gonna try. And so I think I just I wanted to capture the spirit um of Andrée Dijon. So
Uh,
she's cool.
that's a great story.
Yeah.
That's a great story. So you all have already grown, I mean, exponentially since you
Yeah.
started. So where do you hope Andrée Collective will be in 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah.
What's the
Okay,
grand
so
vision?
yeah, so my big audacious grand dream is for us to own our own wedding venue, and be able to provide employment in all of the different aspects of that, from
Wow.
catering to managing events to, uh, you know, doing the florals, like to have kind of a more full service wedding venue. It feels very far away and far fetched because obviously that's an incredibly expensive undertaking. But the idea of being able to provide that real safe space, that real home,
Mm.
within the workplace, to be able to provide such a diversity of jobs, and to be able to, do it all in a really beautiful venue. One thing that I love about the wedding industry, that gets me really excited about it, and we try to really, have this even in our office, and in our spaces, but a lot of times when there's services for underserved individuals, they're in really not nice spaces. Like a lot of times they're in places that feel like everything's really old or like falling apart. I used to work in community behavioral health. It often felt that way. Everything's kind of grimy. And weddings are not that. Like they are beautiful, and sometimes that can feel intimidating. But a lot of times we work through this idea of like you belong here, like you belong
Mhm.
in this
Mm.
beautiful place, like you belong, and our space really matters. Like it matters that we feel different when we're in different spaces, right? And so we want to use place and space to be able to help our folks internalize that sense of worth. And so I love the idea of us being able to have our own venue for that purpose too.
Beautiful. I love that. I love how that honors and values
Mhm.
each individual
Yeah,
and speaks to that value.
yeah,
And I love how it speaks to the power of beauty
yeah,
in our lives, and that's so important.
yeah,
So, what are some of the challenges you're facing right now? What are some of
yeah,
the hard parts? Yeah.
yeah. Great question. I would say one of the biggest challenges, and honestly, I think we've gotten a little better about this in that we've just explained it more and more over the years. But one of the biggest challenges is just that it is a very different model. So people have a hard time sometimes wrapping their mind around what we're doing. We're often asked this question of, aren't wouldn't weddings be super triggering for someone who's come from a domestic violence situation? We were rejected from a grant that we were perfect for because of this specific question. They were like, I just
Wow.
can't wrap my mind around how you can, have be serving domestic violence survivors in a wedding space. And who knows, maybe there's some personal hurt there or something, but in trying to explain it to them, like a lot of times the people that we're serving, they were never married, so that's not like, sometimes they were, a lot of times they weren't, so like that's, for a lot of people, that maybe even was the pinnacle of joy in their
Mm.
relationship. They were married. All of the challenging stuff happened at home, at work, and so for most of our survivors, we find that the things that are the very most triggering are actually, their phones, because a lot of times if I didn't answer my phone on the first ring or answer the, text as soon as it came through, I was getting, so we find people very jumpy around their phones. A lot of times it's just walking through the spaces and places and neighborhoods that they've been. It's having to make really big decisions on their own. It's the feeling of I can't
Mhm.
trust myself. Like these are the things that are really triggering. We've had someone, walk out of our office before and see a vehicle that looked like their abuser's vehicle, and that had nothing to do with events. Like we were nowhere near a wedding, right? And so one thing that we often try and help people understand is that triggers are everywhere when you've been through trauma. And so whether it's a wedding or not, that we can't avoid our triggers. This is why we have a kind of very mental health forward, therapeutic
Yeah.
process through all of our work. We have a mental health advocate on every financial literacy call. Myself or another therapist is on call during our, weddings anytime we have an apprentice there, so that they can pick up the phone and call us if they need to, right? So like we
Mm.
we we really work on meeting that need, but also like we just can't avoid our triggers. Like we have to deal with them in a way that feels safe and therapeutic. And so we try and create a safe place to let it happen as best as possible. So that's one thing I think, just understanding and really getting the work that we do, that can be a challenge. Um, and then I think every single nonprofit, and especially every single startup nonprofit, will say the same thing. Funding is the hardest piece. especially as a startup nonprofit. So like we're only 3 years old, and coming up on our fourth year, and so we, a lot of times for funding sources and grants, they're really looking for a certain number of years that you've been serving clients. They're looking for a number of 990s that you have filed, a number, so all of these, a number of participants that you've served, a minimum budget requirement. And so a lot of times that is just a barrier when you're starting, a new organization. We're at the place where we're expanding, and there's so much need that we need to meet, and or that we want to meet, and at the same time, we can't do it without the funding piece. And so we're just in that fun space that we're trusting the Lord will continue to provide and move us forward. And we're really grateful for organizations like Invested Faith and others that are all willing to take the chance and go, yeah, no, we still, we know you're young. That's okay. We want to fund you anyways. And so that makes so much of the difference, because that, I would say, is definitely the hardest piece.
So I'm going to move us to our last question that we're
Okay.
asking all of our guests this season. And it comes from that Isaiah passage that says, do not consider the things of old, but um, I am doing a new thing. Do you not perceive it? And so the question is, what is an old thing that we need not consider anymore? And what is a new thing you see God doing
Hmm.
that is springing forth?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. Hmm. I think the thing that comes to mind the most is the old thing, for myself, and that I would consider other, especially entrepreneurs who are parents or who are moms. I would say there is I am trying to put away the idea that I have to do it all.
Mm.
The idea that like I have to be, the person, doing everything at Andrée Collective, making every decision, right? Like, um, and being at every single thing my kids are doing, and being there to like, cook the meal and clean the house. And I'm the worst housekeeper ever, so that's not actually much of an issue. I'm really more than happy to delegate that one off to my husband or anyone who wants to do it. But I'm trying to lean into, I actually can, I can prioritize. It's okay if it's not everything. So I'm gonna uh be as present as I can possibly be with my kids. And it's okay if they have a 2-hour babysitter after school, and, they're still grow up and be well rounded children. And I'm going to try and, be the best leader I can be at Andrée Collective, which a lot of times means that I'm delegating, and I'm handing things off to people, and I'm asking for help, and I'm letting them lean in. So yeah, this idea of like I have to do everything and keep every plate spinning, that is my old thing. I'm working really hard on shedding it,
Nice.
and really like leaning into to trusting other people, to even outsourcing where I can. That
Mm.
when I've allowed that mind shift and given myself permission for that, that has made a big difference in my life, in my ministry, in my work, and even in my family.
Yeah, nice. And so, what is the new thing you see God doing?
Uh, I see God showing me that He cares about the things that I care about more than I do.
Mm.
So I don't have to hold them with the
Ah,
tightest of fists. I can trust that, if He's called me into this, and He's gonna move it forward. And that's something I'm constantly reminding myself at like 1 in the morning when I'm tossing and turning over my to-do list. That is the thing I'm constantly trying to remember, and trying to remind those around me too, right? Like we can get so caught up in understanding the importance of this work. And sometimes we let the importance of this work uh, drive over our own selves. And it's something I see a lot in nonprofit, and it burns us out, right? When we do that in nonprofit work, we want to do everything because, you know, we can, so we must. And so the idea that like God cares about these people more than I do, God cares about my
Mhm.
children more than I do, God, which is mind blowing to me sometimes, right? But God cares about me. God cares about Andrée Collective. Cares about my marriage, my church, my family, like all of these things more, even more than I do. And so I can trust Him with them.
Yeah. I I so appreciate that you named that as the new thing because there is God cares about these things and always has,
Yeah,
right? There is a timelessness to this outpouring of God's love. And there is a newness.
yeah,
New every morning is your love, oh God,
yeah,
right? And so I am so appreciating that you have named the deepness of God's care and love for you, for your family, and for this ministry
yeah,
as a new thing.
yeah, yeah. Something I have
Yeah.
to constantly day to day remind myself of, because I start
Mhm.
my shoulders tensing and rising a little more,
Right?
like the
Yeah.
pressure, the work that we're doing, and reminding myself, okay, I can actually like it's not all on me.
Yeah.
God,
Yeah. Yeah.
God is
It's
taking
here.
us. Yeah.
Always has been, always will be. Yeah. Thanks be to God. Well, thank you. Thank you for your time with us, Sam, for the ministry that you're doing, for who you are. Deeply grateful.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Sam, so great to see you always.
You too. You too. Yes. Excited for hopefully more opportunities to be in your presence as well. So
Yeah.